When police broke into the attic of an elegant French home in 1901, they expected perhaps a hidden affair or a scandal. What they found was something out of a nightmare. A woman, once the pride of high society, lay naked on a straw bed covered in filth, her hair trailing to the floor, her body barely clinging to life. She had been missing for 25 years, but she never left the house. This is the horrifying true story of Blanche Monnier, the woman imprisoned by her own family. In the heart of Poitiers, France, nestled among manicured gardens and aristocratic facades, stood the Monnier residence, an image of elegance, tradition, and social grace. The Monnier family was admired, respected, and untouchable, but hidden within their grand estate was a secret so dark, so grotesque, it would horrify the nation and leave a stain on their legacy forever. For 25 years, Blanche Monnier, a woman once praised for her beauty and charm, vanished from the world. Her name faded from conversations, her memory reduced to hustled whispers and unanswered questions. Her mother claimed grief. Her brother carried on as if nothing had happened. But the truth was locked away behind a chained attic door, sealed in silence and darkness. This isn't fiction. This is a real case. A chilling tale of obsession, cruelty, and betrayal wrapped in the velvet curtain of nobility. How does a woman disappear without a trace? In her own home? And how did no one ask the right questions for over 2 decades? You're about to uncover one of the most disturbing true stories ever recorded. This is the twisted, tragic life of Blanche Monnier, the woman who became a prisoner of love, family, and silence. Blanche Monnier, once the radiant jewel of Poitiers society, would come to be known not for her beauty or status, but for a horrific secret buried within the walls of her family's estate. Born on March 1st, 1849, into the prestigious Monnier family, Blanche lived in a world of aristocracy and respectability. Her family, descendants of old nobility, held power, wealth, and influence in the tightly knit French bourgeoisie. Her father, Charles, was a respected academic. Her mother, Louise, a star matriarch obsessed with appearances. As Blanche blossomed into a stunning young woman, she quickly drew admiration from suitors and townspeople alike. But beneath the social smiles and polished exterior of the Monniers' home, something deeply sinister was taking root. No one suspected that a nightmare would soon unfold behind locked doors. At the age of 27, Blanche did the unthinkable. She fell in love with a man her mother despised. His name was Victor Calmiel, a modest but principled lawyer, older and without fortune, who captured Blanche's heart with quiet sincerity. Louise Monnier, obsessed with status and reputation, considered him beneath her station, nothing more than a penniless nobody. When Blanche expressed her desire to marry him, Louise was not just disapproving, she was enraged. How could her daughter, her beautiful legacy, dare to tarnish the family name with such an unsuitable match? She issued an ultimatum: end the relationship or suffer the consequences. Blanche, determined and in love, refused. She had no idea her decision would cost her nearly 3 decades of freedom. One night in 1876, Blanche disappeared without a trace. Her friends were confused, her suitor devastated, and society whispered rumors of heartbreak or scandal. But there was no explanation, only silence from the Monnier household. The family claimed to be in mourning, speaking vaguely of a nervous breakdown or a retreat to a distant convent. No one questioned them. After all, who would suspect the Monniers? They were well-respected pillars of the community. In truth, Blanche hadn't left town at all. She was locked away, alone, in darkness, in a sealed attic above the very house she grew up in. Her mother, with the quiet complicity of her brother Marcel, had imprisoned her like an animal. As the years dragged on, Blanche's absence faded into obscurity. Her fiancé, unable to find her or uncover the truth, died in 1885, probably believing she had abandoned him or met a tragic end. Meanwhile, behind the thick wooden door of the attic, Blanche remained alive, but barely. Stripped of her dignity, sunlight, and even basic hygiene, she lay in filth, feeding on scraps and enduring the scurrying of rats across her mattress at night. Her once brilliant mind began to fracture under the weight of abandonment and sensory deprivation. Marcel, a man of education and law, carried on with his life just meters away, all while his sister wasted into a shadow upstairs. The horror of her existence remained known only to those complicit, and they chose silence. It wasn't until 1901, 25 long years after Blanche's disappearance, that fate intervened. A single anonymous letter arrived at the office of the Attorney General in Paris. The handwriting was shaky, but the message was precise. "Monsieur Attorney General," it began, "I have the honor to inform you of an exceptionally serious occurrence. A spinster locked up in Madame Monnier's house, living in her own filth." At first, the officials were skeptical, but something about the tone, the sheer desperation behind the words, moved them to act. They contacted the local police in Poitiers, issuing an immediate order to investigate the Monnier home. What they would find would not just confirm the letter, it would horrify the entire nation. On the afternoon of May 23, 1901, Commissioner Bucheton arrived at the Monnier estate. Armed with authority and suspicion, he led a team of officers through the primly trimmed garden, past fragrant rose bushes and immaculate hedges, toward a house of horrors. The maid answered with practiced politeness, feigning confusion. Louise, now 75 and feeble, claimed illness from her bed. Marcel, when confronted, appeared agitated but composed. "There is no such woman here," he insisted. The officers pushed forward anyway, climbing floor by floor, searching each room. The house was clean, orderly, nothing amiss. But then they reached the attic. A locked door, sealed tight with chains and a rusted padlock, stood between them and the truth. The smell leaking from underneath was a warning. The moment they broke the lock, the air hit them like a physical blow. A stench so thick it clung to their clothes and turned their stomachs. Inside, the attic was pitch black. The officers had to tear canvas from the windows to let in light. But as the room brightened, the horror became clear. There, at the far end, lay a frail figure curled on a straw mattress, soaked with years of filth. Her skin was pale and paper-thin, her long, tangled hair cascading to her ankles. Her nails were thick, curling like talons. She flinched and recoiled at the light like a wounded animal. One officer later reported, "The air was so unbreathable, the odor so rank, that it was impossible to stay longer. Bugs and rats were everywhere." Marcel was brought in to confirm her identity. His voice folded as he finally admitted the truth. "This is my sister, Blanche Monnier." The revelation rocked France. People who had once dined with the Monnier were now screaming outside their gates. The once honored family name became a national disgrace. Blanche was carried out on a stretcher, barely weighing 25 kilograms. She could not speak coherently, her body ravaged by decades of decay, her mind teetering between lucidity and madness. For 25 years she had seen no sunlight, heard no kind word, and knew only silence, insects, and isolation. The question burning in every citizen's mind was simple. How could this happen for so long? Louise Monnier was immediately arrested, but her reign of cruelty ended shortly thereafter. Just 15 days after Blanche's rescue, Louise died of cardiac failure. Some said it was fear, others said shame. Either way, justice was never fully served. Crowds gathered at the Monnier home, some throwing stones, others crying for vengeance. Marcel, who had carried on as a respected man of the law all those years, was put on trial. He was found guilty in the first ruling, but on appeal, shockingly, he was acquitted. The court deemed him mentally unfit and argued that French law at the time had no clear duty to rescue. He walked free, although history would never solve him. Blanche, now 52 years old, was moved to a psychiatric hospital in Blois. Doctors found her in a fragile mental state, plagued with schizophrenia, extreme trauma, and psychological disorders caused by years of isolation. She had become a shell of the vibrant young woman she once was. Despite being free in body, she was imprisoned in mind. Visitors described her as quiet, sometimes smiling without reason, other times retreating into herself, staring into space as if still locked in that dark room. Though she was finally under care, her life would never return to normal. 12 years after her discovery, Blanche Monnier passed away on October 13th, 1913. Her death was quiet, almost as if the world had moved on from her tragedy. The newspapers wrote brief updates, but the public's attention had drifted elsewhere. In the hospital logs, she was just another patient lost at time. But for those who remembered, her name remained etched in their minds, a symbol of horror, a victim of unspeakable cruelty by those who should have loved her most. Her story became a whisper in the halls of French history, too disturbing to forget. Years later, in 1930, famed author André Gide would revive the story with his book La Séquestrée de Poitiers. He changed little, only the names. The horror didn't need embellishment. The cold reality of Blanche's life was more terrifying than fiction. The book reignited national conversation, not just about Blanche, but about family abuse, legal loopholes, and how privilege can sometimes shield monstrous crimes. It forced France to look inward and ask difficult questions. How many other attic victims might have gone unnoticed? Blanche's story has since become a chilling reminder of how easily abuse can be hidden beneath a mask of respectability. It is not only a tale of one woman's suffering, but of an entire society's blind eye. Her tragedy exposed a darkness that often hides behind fine curtains and noble titles. And it warned the world that silence, especially within families, can be just as dangerous as violence. What the Monniers did was not just a crime of confinement. It was a crime of erasure, of taking a life without shedding a drop of blood. Today, the story of Blanche Monnier is studied in classrooms, shared in documentaries, and whispered in late-night conversations. Her name has become synonymous with one of the most shocking discoveries of the 20th century. She reminds us that evil doesn't always wear a villain's face. Sometimes it wears pearls and dines with politicians. And sometimes it lets a woman rot in an attic for 25 years, while the world applauds its civility. Blanche Monnier lived and died in the shadow of injustice, but her story continues to shine a light on hidden suffering. Blanche Monnier died in 1913, just 12 years after she was freed from the room that stole her youth, her sanity, and her future. Though her body was rescued, her spirit had long been broken, shattered by the betrayal of the very people meant to protect her. Her story is not just about one woman's suffering. It's about the terrifying ease with which darkness can hide behind respectability, how silence can be more damning than violence, and how society often looks the other way when the powerful are involved. In the end, Blanche wasn't buried in that attic, but something inside her was. Let her story remind us, evil doesn't always knock. Sometimes it lives upstairs, hidden, waiting, ignored. If this story moved you, share it. Because even over a century later, Blanche Monnier's voice still echoes through history, begging not to be forgotten.